Let's see how this kiln looks today. Okay. All right. So let's get some bowls out of the rack here. Let's do this row. Let's not drop any. Welcome back to Golden Soul Studios. Today, on a very hot summer day, we're loading the Hi-Fire glaze kiln, which is this Olsen right here. And we're loading it with our bowls that we've been throwing for the last couple of months. We're hoping to fill up the kiln with this and a lot of testware. Now we're going to Hi-Fire, which is what I consider Hi-Fire, but people will argue about that. But it's a cone 6 firing, which I consider in the Hi-Fire range. So around what was it, 2100 degrees, something like that. I have to go look it up. Yeah. Anyway, these are bisque pottery that has a glaze on it, so a dry, or it's wet at the time when it's applied, glaze. So I dip or paint on the glaze. In this case, it's all brushed on in layers. Each one of these has about 2 applications of glaze per color. This particular one right here has 2 different colors on it. It has a white interior and a colored exterior. Now you can't really go by what it looks like here. I could probably look up the code number I have on these and tell you which one it is, but I'm hoping it turns out nice either way. Now this is a thrown cone, it's a throwing ware cone 6 stoneware. So the clay body is actually designed to fire at this temperature range and not hotter. And when you fire at that temperature range, you get a fully vitrified piece of pottery. So what that really means is that all the clay particles and the glaze, or the glass, which is what the glaze turns into, is basically a glass coating on your mud pot. What that means is it all becomes fully vitrified or melts and becomes a cohesive mass. So the clay particles will reach a temperature where they melt and liquefy to the other clay particles, and the well, there's clay in it. The glass particles, which are a combination of clay and other minerals, will melt and form a glass, and that glass will bond to itself and also the clay body, which in a sense is a lot like glass, although you can't see through it. So anyway, that's what we're working on today. I threw these are about, the little ones here I think are about 3/4 pound to a pound wet. They're not that much dry, and they'll be even less when it's fired. So anyway, we're going to be loading the kiln. We have a whole bunch of ware. We got 2 racks to get in here, and we're hoping we get to fill this kiln up and fire it off. If it's not full, then I have to make some more stuff. So come on along for the ride, and this is what it takes to load a ceramics glaze kiln. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and move the camera so that we can look inside the kiln, which I have the one camera here so you can look inside of it, but I want to explain a little bit about what's going on, so let's go ahead and move this camera over. So that should work. So in this firing, in this loading of this kiln, you can see that the ware is stacked on shelves, which are these guys here. Let me grab a shelf. Now this is a kiln shelf. It is a super high fired specialty ceramic. These particular ones are hollow, so that's really nice because it makes it much easier to handle. They're not heavy like the old school ones. And we have a kiln wash on there. This is normally what it looks like without the kiln wash, and this has the kiln wash on it. Now the kiln wash is in case some of the glaze were to overheat and run down the piece and run over the foot, the little bump. If the glaze runs down and over the foot and sticks to the kiln shelf or rolls onto the kiln shelf, the wash is to help keep it from binding to the kiln shelf itself, because that makes a heck of a mess out of the kiln shelves, and we don't want to do that because it means we get extra work in the long run to fix it. So anyway, we have our kiln shelves stacked in here, and we have stilts. This is a stilt. Very simple, again, kind of the same material that the kiln shelves are made out of. High fired, very durable, special clay mixture, and we use these. Now we use these to be able to stack up layer after layer of kiln shelf, of which we're going to do here in a minute once we get the rest of the ware onto the shelves. And when we're loading this, we have to be very careful when we're loading our ware that we don't let it touch the other pots. Get these a little closer. Actually, I'm gonna just nudge these around a little bit. So they can come pretty close to each other, but they can't touch. If they touch, that's gonna be a bad thing. And they will definitely stick together and become unusable, let alone unsellable. All right, let's get a picture of this. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's a somewhat of a rinse and repeat process of doing this again and again as we build the kiln. Is kind of how we build the load in the kiln, and it's going to take us a good chunk of today to get this there and ready. Right on. Let's grab another set of pots and bring them over. Well, we got some more. Now we're doing our best to put as many of these in this kiln firing and on each shelf as we can, because we like to have a very efficient kiln load. All right, so this is what it looks like when you have a shelf in there that's fully loaded. Now you may notice that I have some stilts in the corners of the outside of the shelves. Ignore those. I'm just baking some things onto those, so it has nothing to do with this firing. All right. Our next step is to put 3 more sets of kiln shelves in here right on top of these. And the first thing we're going to do is going to get our clay wads, and we're going to put a clay wad on top of each one of those stilts. And a clay wad is basically some clay, just like it sounds, wadded up piece of clay that will allow us to put a little pad on each stilt and levelize the next series of shelves, the next 3 shelves we put in. All right, so as you can imagine, it's just a little wad of clay, smushed out a little bit, set on, let's make that one a little smaller. So these are all pretty level to begin with, so we don't need big wads. We want to utilize our clay well, and we don't want it blowing up. So we're trying to figure this out to get our maximum usage here. So I developed this clay wad by taking a standard bit of my clay and adding a bunch of grog to it, so it's very grainy, a lot of big particles in there, and that will help in rapid drying, and it will help prevent it sticking to the tops of the shelves. I'm sorry, to the tops of the stilts. So once we get all our wads in place, then we'll bring over some shelves and clean them and set them in place. It is a time-consuming thing to do this. So when you buy pottery from a handmade potter, or a potter makes his living out of making pottery, you can be assured that he's put a lot of time and effort into each thing that he's made. I mean, that doesn't even count the years it took for him to learn how to do the process the first time, to center and throw a pot on the potter's wheel, to glaze a pot, to trim a pot. Fun things we'll get into in a later video here, although there's plenty of other people doing ceramics on the internet that I don't need to be the guy to show you how to make pottery. It's really not my specialty. I don't consider myself very good at it. I consider my work okay. And I say that because I've seen good potters. And you know, it gives you something to try to achieve, to get to that level where you can consider yourself, you know, more than average, I guess you could say. Anyway, we now have clay wads on top of all our stilts. We've cleaned our shelves. Make sure there's nothing sticking to the bottom or the sides. And we're going to hold this in there in just the right place. And lightly press it down. All right, that's the first shelf. Let's get 2 more. Time to get more stilts. All right, so at this point it's basically a rinse and repeat. So why don't we just go ahead and shift over to the time lapse, which is hiding right behind you, and you're kind of blocking that. Anyway, we're doing this again and again and again until we get up to a further height, and we'll come back then and talk a little more. So hang on, here we go with time lapse. Okay. All right. Yeah. Got the one piece here. Well, we've put all the pottery that I have ready to go that's glazed in this kiln, and as you can see, I still got a lot more to do. So what that means is I have to make more ware, biscuit, glaze it before I can finish loading this kiln. Now I do have a few pots left that aren't glazed, but not enough to fill this. And we just got a new batch of clay in. The next thing we're going to be doing is making some pots, or bowls in this case. We're going to make some 3-pound bowls because we want to fill the rest of this kiln. But we got to make some bowls, we got to bisque fire the bowls, and then glaze the bowls, and then they'll be ready to go. We're going to get that kiln loaded, and then we're going to fire that kiln, and we're going to bring you guys along for the ride. Probably on the next video, not on this video. So hang in there, come back next week. Please like and subscribe. Hope you're having fun. This is Mark from Golden Soul Studios.